I've spent the last 3 days putting an edge on this. This is a adapted M9 bayonet. It's a chunky, beefy knife, 5mm thick, and yeah, I'd never actually put a decent edge on it, and I think I've managed it now.
This is apologies if he draws blood. Oh no, look, that's blimey.
There we go. I don't know if you can see that. That's shaving sharp now, so I'm finally happy with that. And yeah, it's a beast. I never use it. I was just sat here one day, well, about a week ago, and just looking at it, going, "I've not sharpened you," so I decided to sharpen you. What else have I got in there? I've got a.
What are your go-to tools for sharpening? Do you have some go-to tools that people could, if they were hunting on Amazon, they could go find for themselves? Or
I can. Give me a sec. Okay, this is straight out of my rucksack, which was to prove. There you go. Here's my kit ready. Axe, the whole works in there. And this is straight out of my rucksack, and this is my go-to. This is what I keep in my rucksack. So all it is a wooden batten, and this actually come off, would you believe, my old bunk bed. My mum still had it, and she in the shed, and she goes, "Can you throw it away?" And I looked at these and went, "That's perfect for making a sharpening platform." So what I do is I've got 2 of these, and around it I wrap wet and dry
sandpaper.
Sandpaper, yeah, wet and dry sandpaper. That's all I use. And so that is 600 grit, because I don't let my knives get really bad, but if they are bad, I've got some coarser grit, and I just tape it. So it's wrapped round. So once one side gets smooth, I've got rougher material, but the advantage is I've got different grades already. So as one side wears down, I've got the smoother grades to get the polish on. So that's my primary sander. And then in this is my double-sided leather strop. And again, it's made from exactly the same batten that you saw, but I just shaped it. And I've put on leather both sides. One side I use a polishing compound, and what do I use? Can you see that? Autosol metal polish.
Oh yeah. You
can buy that from any sort of car garage, because it's used for polishing chrome, etc. That goes on one side, and then on the other side is just smooth leather. So I've got all my grades I want to take it up to polishing grade. How much did this cost me? The most expensive thing is actually the Autosol.
Wasn't it the bunk bed?
Well, the bunk bed was dying anyway, so it was free. But yeah, any piece of wood, you know. I decided to make some more strops, because I'm teaching people how to sharpen. I just went down to B&Q and bought some oak boards. They're 3 inches wide, and I think they're about 1 inch thick, if not just less. And I'm just going to cut them up into little strop sizes, and those are going to be my sharpening. But that kit is worth less than a tenner. And if you don't want to buy Autosol, use toothpaste. It works perfectly.
Toothpaste.
Whitening toothpaste.
I've never heard of anybody using toothpaste before, but I've got to give it a go.
Yeah. And, you know, even if you don't have leather, use a bit of cardboard and put toothpaste on that. And then you can sharpen on that as well. You're taking all these notes down, aren't you?
I am writing. Like, I'm sorry, people, if you're listening to this and I'm not talking, or I don't know, something like that, then I'm sorry, but I'm writing all this down, because my knife sharpening stuff is more expensive than that, and I thought I had the cheap version, but obviously not.
Now, what I used to sharpen with is the Japanese sharpening stones.
Yes, that's what I was expecting to come out first.
I've had these, wow, years now. I cannot tell you the last time I used these. I really cannot tell you. I used to use them all the time. And then I just realized, actually, the secret to knife sharpening is to keep your knife sharp all the time. And if it starts going a little bit blunt, particularly while you're carving, you'll notice it. The cuts that you're putting in just become that fraction harder. So or bring the strop out and strop it straight away. And then I've brought it straight back up to razor. That's all I do with my knife. You know, my main knife is...
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how we make a mess of even bigger mess in Manse's study in an hour. We just ask him to empty his rucksack over the floor.
There it is. No, my study's becoming even more of a mess than it was.
I'm sorry.
No.
And so, do you use the same strategy for your axes as well?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, just stay on top of it. Where's my main knife? There it is. So this is my main knife. It's a custom-made shing. It's 4mm, maybe. Yeah, something like that. My Bushcraft fellows call it my crowbar because it is so beefy compared to their knives. But I love it. I hate the slim grips, and it just fits my hand beautifully. But yeah, it's what I use, and I don't know if you can see, but there is on the bevel, it's pretty much a mirror polish. Because, you know, as soon as it starts going down, I just throw it straight back on the strop and bring it back up. I've not put this on my stones. Yeah, as I said, I can't remember. I honestly can't remember last time I used my stones, because I just keep them up at that standard that they need to be at.
And so, other than staying on top of, like, the moment it feels the blade feels a bit dull, those cuts are getting slightly harder, maybe strop it or whatever you might need to do. What other tips do you have for people around sharpening their knives? And the reason I ask this is I've spent a lot of time with people doing bushcraft and survival skills and whatever else in the woods. And people always turn up with the bluntest, often a decent knife that's blunt as buggery. And they say, oh, I don't know how to sharpen it, or I've tried and I've buggered it up. And I don't think it's that complicated, but what are your top tips for them to get that blade razor sharp?
Start slowly and don't expect perfection straight away. Expect to really mess it up initially, because, well, actually the Mora, the flat Scandi bevel, is the perfect knife to learn to sharpen on. And what I would suggest they do is, if anyone wants to learn to sharpen, get yourself a Mora. It's worth it for £10 to learn how to sharpen properly. And then where you've got the bevel, colour it in with a marker pen, like an OHP marker. And then as you strop or as you sharpen, you will see exactly where you are sharpening. So let's do this. I do have a marker pen somewhere, and I'll show you what I mean. This can be a tutorial, isn't it?
I love it. I love it. I love the practical stuff. More practical, the better. I think we talk enough nonsense.
Totally agree with you.
But by the way, I have to say, you mentioned the OHP pen. I like that is showing the 52 years.
Oh, well, if it shows, it shows, doesn't it? All right, so let's get a different Mora that we can see on. There we go, my teaching knives. Even they're sharp, but still. So we've got the bevel along there.
Yep.
So all I'm going to do is I'll hold it up so people can see. Is just colour the bevel in. Okay.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yep. Is that clear enough?
Yep.
Okay. So if I had a black pen, I would do it with black, but I don't. Where did I throw my strops? There we go. So when you sharpen, what I teach people is lay the blade flat initially, then tilt it until the bevel stops. So from there, then tilt it. It's only a fraction until the bevel stops there. Okay?
Yep.
And keep pressure on and just rub it down. Lift and then have a look. And you can see where you've been sharpening because the markers come off. And so do the whole length that way and just keep looking back at it. And that way you know that you're sharpening it correctly. And if once that comes off, just mark it again, you know, with the marker pen, and then just go back once you've done one side. Now, if you look at Mr. Mears' videos, he turns around and says you must do 20 or 10 one side, rotate and do 20 or 10 the other side. That's a load of bollocks. You really don't need to do that, because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we are putting a micro bevel on. There we go.
Oh, I like it.
So a knife or the Scandi, this is how you where you see how crap a drawing I am.
Oh, that's right. You have to tilt it. There we got it. Yep, yep.
Has this sort of bevel on it, right?
Yep.
It's such a bad drawing, isn't it? Anyway, let's enlarge it. So when we, let's get this angle.
There we go.
Does that work?
Yep, that works.
Okay. So when we sharpen, and this area is here, all we're doing is rubbing or eroding a layer down, and what we get is this little overlap there called a micro bevel. Okay?
Yep.
So if we just work on one side, we create a nice little bevel. And then when we flip the knife and come up this side, all we're doing is taking that micro bevel off. It's a little burr on the edge of the knife. So if I sharpen just one side and very carefully I rub my thumb up the edge of the bevel, I'll feel it catching on my fingerprints, the ridges. It'll just catch ever so slightly. It's a micro burr depending on how coarse the grade of your sandpaper is. And when we flip it, so I've just worked my backside off this way, and there's a micro burr beginning to occur already. Okay. All I need to do is just flip it over a couple of passes, and I just need to take that micro burr off.
Because it's tiny.
It's tiny, and all we're doing is folding metal back and forth. Once that micro burr goes, we are down to a straight edge. And then you just, if we look at the edge of a blade, when we're using a coarse paper, the edge under a microscope is wavy. Yeah? And then as we go finer through the grades, we're making that edge smoother and smoother. And once we've dropped right down to leather, if I look under a microscope, it should be a relatively straight line. There should be no little ridges. That is razor sharpness. And that is what sharpening is all about.
That is the most useful 5-minute masterclass on sharpening knives for no money at all, with a piece of sandpaper and a leather belt, that I have ever seen. That's brilliant. And
you know, when I go to the woods, I always wear a leather belt for exactly that purpose. If I don't have my strops with me, I just take my belt off. People give you funny looks sometimes. What the hell are you doing? You undressing in the woods? Just go wrap it around a tree and bang, 100 strops. There's my knife back up to razor sharpness once again. And I just carry on.
That is, okay, that is fantastic. Guys and girls, you don't realize how lucky you are. That is knife sharpening made brilliantly simple and practical. We love it. Thank you, Manse. That's amazing. That's amazing. And you say axes are exactly the same? Get that nice shape to the axe head and then follow the but
no,
axes change depending upon the type of axe, whether it's a carpentry axe or felling axe.
Exactly, yeah. The bevel on an axe is totally different. So we looked at carving knives which have a straight edge. A decent axe will have a concave edge, like so. And so to sharpen that is a slightly different technique. So let's see if I can get this. That's the edge there. And as I take it up, I actually move my sandpaper to follow and keep that concave edge. Because an axe is a splitting tool, predominantly, unless you go down the route of a carving axe.
Yeah, I've got a carpenter's axe that's got a very similar feel to it as a carving knife. Yeah, like that. Yes.
Yeah. So we've got a prominent bevel on one side, and then pretty much a flat side. And the way they work is that they're designed to slice rather than chop. Slightly different process, but because this is slicing, it has a different bevel on it. But the general axe has a concave edge on it because it's designed to split. And to maintain that edge, we need to keep that concave on there. So each tool is different. It's like you get the different chisels as well. You get straight edge chisels, gouges, etc. They all need to be sharpened in a slightly different way. But what you want to do is follow the edge and try to maintain the edge as much as possible. Don't put a secondary edge on it, or secondary bevel on it, because you'll just end up ruining what you've got and then spend a lot of time bringing it back.
So the principle is the same. The principle is to basically follow what you were given when it was new.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Nice and simple. And the process of following it is always hard because you've got to learn yourself how you're going to follow that. And with an axe, it's actually a lot easier to sharpen than a knife, because you can't really go too wrong with it, because the sandpaper is, wherever I've thrown it, is sort of going around, and using the same principle, using the marker pen along the edge, you'll soon know where you're getting the edge and where you're not. The one tip I can give out of everyone is use a marker pen. Color the edge in when you're learning to sharpen, and that way you'll see exactly where you're hitting the edge or where you're not, and then you can adjust your angle of attack, for a better word, to get that wearing away, or that sharpening of the steel.
Wow, that is brilliant. So if you want to go and spend some time in the UK or Scandinavia or wherever with Manse, and you'll have the sharpest shit around.